welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 57. The title of this episode is Setting Up the Major Event for the Economic Collapse. Now, as we know, they were talking about a cyber attack. Yesterday I went over it and showed you many articles leading up till yesterday. And they were talking about, infrastructure hits. They're talking about banking hits. The DHS even put out a report saying, they're going to hit Bank of America, 130 institutions. They're going to hit other sites, smaller businesses, could be infrastructure. And basically, I've been monitoring this all day long here, and I've been putting maps up on the People, and I'm looking at it right now, real time, and we're not seeing that much. I mean, we're looking at pretty much what we always see with these cyber attacks, nothing out of the ordinary. None of the news agencies are reporting in, letting us know that something major happened. I was able to access my bank. No one reported in saying they couldn't access anything. But the big question is it over? Or are they getting everyone to feel, okay, the cyber attack really didn't happen, there's nothing to worry about, and everyone goes back to sleep, and by the end of this week, something does happen. So let's go through the current news right now, and then we'll discuss what the major events are coming up and what we need to look out for, because just because they tell you something is going to happen doesn't mean it's always going to happen. And normally when they're telling you this stuff, it's to brainwash the American people and get them used to hearing about cyber attacks. Now, I would have expected a little bit more today, but it is on a Tuesday, and if I was going to do a cyber attack, it would probably be Friday afternoon, where they can do a closing of the banks for like a bank holiday or into the weekend, some type of thing, and just shock everyone a little bit of, look what these cyber attacks can do. So we're going to have to sit and wait, and that's why on the People I put the dates from May 7th to May 10th, because something could happen, because a lot of the articles and a lot of the reports that came out saying that they're planning it for this week. So we'll see what happens. I mean, this is a precursor to something that's going to be much, much larger. And if you look, a lot of the reports are coming out that they're blaming China for all the cyber attacks. So they are setting something up in the future. So let's start out here. There was an article on Zero Hedge, and this is the S&P with and without QE, and I thought this was very interesting because we see like the stock market, and we see the Dow Jones going up and dipping, going up, and we know that's QE1, QE2, QE3, and it looks like a step going up to where we are today. And by the way, the Dow hit over 15,000 today. And everyone's cheering, hurrah, hurrah, for that. And right now it's at 15,056, and gold is being smacked down. It's around 17. I think they're going to try to keep gold around the mid 1400s for right now, and that's what it looks like they're doing. As it goes up, it comes right back down. It goes up and it comes right back down. But it's very interesting. I put the graph on this page. The S&P, it looks like, with QE, it gained 1,142 points, and without QE, it would be negative 290 right now. So they did this whole thing, and I thought this was very interesting, and it shows you that without the Fed doing QE, we would already be collapsed. Everything would just be a complete mess. And right now, as they keep adding more and more of this money into the market and building the stock market up and bringing the housing bubble up and the treasury bond bubble up, the crash and the bubble, when it bursts, it's going to be horrific. It's going to shock people to their very core when this does happen. I mean, we have many people telling us that it's going to happen. They predicted the 2008 uh, crash, and now they're telling us it's going to be even worse. And if they continue to say, I mean, these people are, Gerald Celente, Mark Farber, Peter Schiff, Jim Rogers, and there's many others that continually say this. And as this continually goes higher and higher and higher, and people keep investing in the stock market, which I don't know how many people are actually doing it, but the volume is very low, and it looks like more institutions are involved. But as more and more people buy the hype, and buy the hype of the real estate market, it's just going to crash even further. And you have to remember, in 2008, the unemployment was around 4.9, 5.1%. Now we have a recalculated unemployment, and that's around 7.5%. But the real unemployment, if we go back to the government's calculations, is around 10%. And if we add in actually all the people that dropped out of the labor force, we're looking at 23% unemployment at this time. So we have people who lost their wealth during the last crash, people who lost their homes during the last crash, people who've taken reduced salary from the last crash, people who had to use their savings just to survive during the last crash, people who've put more debt on their credit cards because their income is not enough to support their lifestyle, and they don't want to give up their lifestyle. They didn't have this before. People do not have the same equity in their homes like they did before. So when this comes tumbling down, it's going to hurt everyone at the same time. And what's interesting is, Goldman caves, the unemployment rate is an inappropriate measure of the labor market. And you have to start to think of why they're saying this. Is it because the Fed, with their new calculation, which is meaningless because most of the jobs that are added on are temp or hospitality, and they're getting very close to their goal? Now, when they hit their goal, they said they're going to taper off or stop QE. And we all know that they cannot do this. And we can see this with S&P with QE and S&P without QE. Go to my site. It's on the front page. Look at the graph if you haven't seen it already. It's also in Sentinel Alerts, and you can see it there. And, are they trying to save face right now, saying that this is really not a really good measure? Because let's say they hit 6.5 by the end of the year. What are they going to do? Just cut it off? You know what's going to happen when they stop? Everything's just going to come tumbling down. So now they're making the case, using Goldman as their mouthpiece, letting us know that this is not really a good gauge, and the Fed, really shouldn't go by this, and we should have another way of understanding of where we should be. And you know why they're doing this, because they know they have to continually print. And as they print faster and faster and give more money and up the amount that they're buying in treasury bonds and in real estate per month, you know that things will start getting out of hand, because that's what happens when the collapse gets closer and closer. The central banks start to print as much as they possibly can. Now, moving on. Now, U.S. heads 41-nation war games in the Gulf. Now, Iran fears conflict in a volatile region. Now, Obama says maneuvers are not a warning to Iran. Now, again, whatever they say, it's always the opposite. If he's telling you that it is not a warning, it is totally a warning. The U.S. wants to get into Syria to get to Iran, and they want to start World War III. They need it to cover up. They need this to cover up the economic collapse, and they need to get something started, and that's why they're antagonizing North Korea. They're bringing China into the picture and blaming them with their reports saying, yes, China is the country that is, and the government that is doing all the cyber attacks. Not all, but most of the cyber attacks. And again, using proxy servers, you can bounce the attacks off of many different servers. So it's impossible for them to do this. Just go onto Google and type proxy server. What they'll give you is a set of IP addresses, and when you go through the proxy server, if it's an anonymous proxy server, it will make it seem like you're coming from a different country with a different IP address. And then you can have that bounce off another proxy server, and you can have that bounce off another one. So for them to say we know exactly where these are coming from, all these attacks, it's a bunch of bullshit. They can't even figure out how to stop spam. And they're trying to tell us that they figured out, where all these are coming from. And most of them we know where they're coming from. FBI, CIA, DHS, and because they're setting up the main event, the major event of a cyber attack, which will bring the entire false flag, war, stealing the money from the people, everything all wrapped up into one is going to be this cyber attack. But again, these drills out in the Gulf, it's amazing how many of these drills that we need all of a sudden. When was the last time you heard of a drill out there? And it seems like all of a sudden we need to have one like every 4 weeks or every 5 weeks. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now, and again, Israel, Syria, because of Senate Resolution 65, if Israel gets into war with Syria, which leads to war with Iran, the United States, because of this Senate Resolution 65, will back up Israel and go to war. But we have to remember, Russia is backing Syria. China is backing Syria, and that's why Kerry is out in Russia trying to convince the Russians, hey, listen, don't do anything if we invade, okay? But, the Russians aren't listening. They're going to do whatever they have to do. So let's move on here. Gun control. There was a video about making the case for high-capacity magazines. And it was very interesting. I have it linked on the page. I tried to embed the video, but for some reason it just won't embed. But anyhow, you can click on the link. It'll bring you right to the video. And it shows a family at home where these two guys, or who are hyped up on drugs, knock on the door. They want to use the phone. The guy has a gun, so the husband gets the gun. The kids are sitting on the couch. The wife is there, and the guy breaks open the door. And again, he has 6 rounds of bullets or 10 rounds of bullets, whatever it is, and he fires 4 into the guy. He goes down. The next guy comes up, and he only has a couple more, misses, hits him once, but the other guy shot him and the entire family. And I thought that was very powerful, the way they portrayed it. And if you haven't seen it yet, go over and take a look. Now Biden, and I thought this, let me just say, Biden, gun control to wait for immigration. So they're going to work on immigration because that's much, much more important right now than the gun control. That's what he's saying. Now, what he is saying is that he's going to work on the immigration first, and the gun control bills will just have to wait. And what he says is any votes for expanded background checks must wait at least through the summer while the Senate debates immigration reform. So this immigration reform that they're talking about is going to take up most of their time. Now, what I believe is happening here is he says he's going to go across the country and push the gun control bill, and they're giving some time here where they're planning another event. And while this immigration bill is being discussed, all of a sudden we're going to have another event, a shooting or some other horrific event that has to do with gun control. And I think this is what they're setting up right now, because they need to get the guns away from the American people. They need to do this before the collapse. And there's no way they're going to wait for after the summer. Let's just think about this for a second, and let's just think of the facts that has happened. We've had many, many incidents of shootings, the Aurora, Sandy Hook, and many others. I have that listed on my timeline. We've had many, many, many incidents leading up to Sandy Hook. Then they had the bill that Dianne Feinstein had ready, and it was ready to go as soon as that last shooting happened. Amazing. And they pushed this as far as they could take it. And they continually pushed this, and President Obama even did executive orders with all the kids from the Newtown shooting up on stage while he was signing the executive orders to keep it in the mind of the American people. It was in the Senate during the Boston bombing where they used black gunpowder to create the bombs, and a bill all of a sudden came out of nowhere, and it was introduced where they need to regulate black powder and ammunition and even tag ammo. And President Obama even came out with additional executive orders during this time. Now they're just going to stop and wait. Does that really make sense? What happened here? I thought it was so important. It is. It is important. But what they're going to do now, since everything else failed, they need the American people now to beg for it. So they saw what they did before. It didn't work. It wasn't horrific enough. So now they really have to turn it up a notch. And they really have to show the people why guns are no good in the hands of the people. And this is what I believe is going to happen with this. Because there's no way, after all of what they've done, and the bill just sitting pending in the Senate, because President Obama begged them to keep it there. Don't just leave it pending, so it's ready to go when something happens. So, moving on. Now, this is an interesting story. Police want a kill switch for smartphones. And, they give their reasons of the phone swiping. People steal the phones. They want to sell it. So they just want a kill switch so they can just shut it off. And this way, people can't use it. But let's take this a step further. During the Boston bombing, the DHS had a mobile type of kill switch. I don't care how they did it or, what was involved. They were able to shut off the mobile system and shut it down, which tells me they must also have some type of internet kill switch already, working. We just don't know about it. Now, to take it a step further, they want all the manufacturers to implement the kill switch. Now, what would this do? During a collapse or during an event, they can shut everyone's phone off in an instant, which is better than the mobile kill switch. Why is this? The mobile kill switch doesn't allow you to call or text or email, but you can still take pictures. You can still record video. If you had an individual kill switch on all smartphones, the whole smartphone just dies. You can't take any pictures. You can't show anything. It'll be nothing. You can't even use the phone. At least with the mobile kill switch, you can save everything on your phone. And when you had wireless or the mobile network again, you're able then to start sending. With the individual mobile kill switch, that's it. The phone is dead. Can't take pictures. Can't take pictures of, just like the Boston bombing, you saw all those pictures and everything that went on. That's what they want to stop. During the collapse, they don't want pictures of, people seeing what the DHS is doing. So, I mean, they don't even have to do this on a hardware level. The next update to your Android phone, your iPhone, your BlackBerry, in the software itself, can be the kill switch. So they don't even have to wait for you to go out and buy a new phone. They can just already have it ready to go. And when the event, the collapse, or anything happens, they pull it up on their screen, little software, off. This section in this area, everyone's phones just dies. Boom, off. And you're like, whoa, what just happened here? This is what they want to do. So they can be in complete control of the situation. Now, there was another article saying that the U.S. government is monitoring all phone calls, all emails, and all internet activity. I don't know if we're really surprised about this. They have the Patriot Act and the all the other different acts, and they don't care about the Constitution or the Fourth Amendment. You could just tell by everything that they're doing that that's meaningless to them. So I'm not really shocked about this, and I always assumed that because of all the new laws and everything since 2001, they were listening anyhow. And I understand that the Utah data center, once that's complete, will be collecting all this information. But that's a lot of information to sift through, and I don't know if they're going to be able to make heads or tail of this. But again, this is completely illegal according to the Constitution, because they completely disregarded, the Fourth Amendment, where you need, probable cause, you need evidence, you need warrants issued for them to do this, and they're just bypassing this completely. Now, for Obamacare, it looks like there's a secret plan to destroy and rescue. Now, I thought this was very interesting and really lays out what's happening here. And let me just read this to you. Obamacare is fluid, being rewritten hourly as of the moment. The plan is to create accountable care organizations, or ACOs. So accountable care organizations. These will be defined by geographic areas that contain a certain number of patients. Currently, for example, a pilot ACO blankets a large area of northwestern Iowa. Now, step one. America will be sliced up into geographical areas, which will gather all sorts of patient care data for the feds, and will be paid a fee for service at Medicare rates. The ACOs will be lauded as the saviors of medicine and given bonuses for quality and cost containment. Currently, they are being offered a 50% cash rebate for any savings that bring about. Patients can choose to go anywhere for care in or out of the ACO. Private practitioners outside the system will be allowed to keep practicing. They will not be forced to join the ACO. That will be un-American, but the small practices will be unable to survive the regulatory burden of Obamacare. So many of these little practices will go out of business or retire early. Step two. Once private practitioners are squeezed out of existence, there will be no competition. The ACOs will be the only show in town and totally under the thumb of the federal government. So they will control all of these things. There will be no private medical offices to go to. So basically, the CFO who spoke at our meeting may think the federal government is willing to leave free money on the table for him to pick up, but that only is doled out to favored political donors, not to producers. The bonus is simply another bribe historically given to businesses by government in order to make them um, vassals of the state. And businesses never seem to learn. Small hospitals will have to consolidate under big ones or go out of business. At this point, to prepare for the final step, rumblings of problems in the ACOs will start. Step 3. As government reimbursements diminish and there is no private option, the system will fail to deliver adequate care. Patients will be able to get appointments or timely surgeries, doctors will complain, hospital staffs will strike, and in general, the system will implode. Government, always ready to leap into breach, they'll probably have another law ready to go, will declare a national crisis and push through an emergency legislation that is already in the system to nationalize health care. Hospitals will be taken over by the feds. Doctors and nurses and all necessary personnel will have no choice but to be government employees. And at this point, patients will be assigned to the ACOs without any choice in the matter. At the stroke of a pen, health insurance will cease to exist, and perhaps the companies who hold insurance will be placed in charge of administering the ACOs. And, think this can't happen? Even some of the ACO administrators who admit they are being set up to fail, but fail to what end? To the goal which has been the goal all along. Establish a national health service, a la Canada or England or Sweden. This is not a medical or societal evolution. This is a program incremental revolution, and we, like the Russians and French and Cubans, will pay the price. Because when free market medicine goes, so goes freedom. And you can see what is going to happen, and this is not good. Especially, Obamacare. If people who don't know about it in 2014, it's either you get health insurance or you pay a tax, and those businesses need to supply health insurance to employees over a certain number of hours, and most of the employers are going to cut back on hours so they don't have to provide the Obamacare, which means the employee will have to go out and get the Obamacare health insurance or pay the tax. So this is a lose situation for everybody. This is not good. Now, moving on. The cyber attack major event. Now, there was an article in here that a new English language jihadi publication calls on Muslims to hack the U.S. drones. Now, they're telling us that there's a way to hack the U.S. drones and turn the drones around and use them against the U.S. And this is a perfect scenario for a false flag for the U.S. to get into war. Because let's say they capture a drone, they hack into it, and they turn the drone against the United States. Well, that's an act of war. But, of course, the United States used the drones on them, so this is a sticky situation. Or if they're able to do the hacking wirelessly to the drones in the air, this can pose another problem. But you can see how they're trying to set up some type of false flag, again, to get us into war, because that is their end game. Now, right now, these cyber attacks are continuing, and I'm looking at it live right now, and there's not much going on. It's been the same pretty much all day. A lot of the cyber attacks are hitting Australia, European nations, and there's a few hitting the United States, but not really active right now. And this right now seems like it was a lead-in to a cyber attack. And I personally don't think it's over, and that's why I said from May 7th to May 10th, and let's see what happens by the end of the week, because this could be, Op USA, Anonymous, teamed up with, Al-Qaeda, Islamic extremists, trying to use cyber attacks, but nothing happened today, and then all of a sudden by Friday, something does happen, and everyone, can't get to their banks, because it doesn't seem like they're going to let this just go off and not have anything happen, because I thought it was very interesting in all the articles and everything that the DHS said is that, they think it's a threat, but it's more of a nuisance type of thing, and they're playing it down. And if they're playing it down, that means they're planning on doing something, because they're saying, "Oh, it's just we're just on alert, and so it could be just a nuisance thing," but it's not even a nuisance. It's like nothing, which is very odd, very strange, and it just tells you something is going to happen. And if it doesn't happen by Friday, it might happen when we just don't realize it. And DHS reported that something was going to happen on May 7th, but it really happened on May 15th or something like that. So we have to keep our eyes open. We have to keep aware of what's going on. But we do have a major shooting event or some type of gun control event that is going to make the American people beg for the gun bill. And just by Biden's remarks that they're just going to lay off until, summer or whatever, just doesn't seem right. We also have the NYPD doing some type of chemical drill during the summer. And during the summer, we also have Kokesh March on Washington, July 4th, which, as I was thinking about it, is kind of dangerous, because if I was the government, I would infiltrate the group, and if you're walking in there with armed rifles, all you need is one person in there to fire a shot, and then the government has their excuse to come down on the gun owners, come down on the militant extremists, domestic terrorists, whatever you want to call, homegrown militants, whatever you want to call them, and it is a perfect false flag. And they could add, even if he gets 20 or 30, the government could add hundreds or thousands of people to march, and someone just does one slip up, the whole thing is over. So to me, this seems like this is a complete setup, and if we're going to do this, and he really wants to march on Washington, no weapons, we do it peacefully, because we have to remember, our founding fathers were not hostile. They tried many, many times peacefully to negotiate with the British. They tried to, come to terms. They tried to negotiate. But in the end, the British didn't want it that way, and they just came for their guns. The same thing today. We do everything peacefully. We try to negotiate. We tell them how we feel. We are the people. We don't like the way things are going. We don't like the laws. We don't like you stepping on the Constitution like you've been doing. That is much different than marching in with loaded weapons to the nation's capital, and not even prepared to use them, because in his thing, he's saying that if he's met with resistance, they're just going to run away. So to me, I'd be very careful of this. So there was only one report today about a cyber attack on a federal news radio. They're saying that they're being hit by a cyber attack, and if this is what it is, this is, pretty bad, and I just can't believe all the hype, all this time, everything that they've done. This is what they're going to get out of it, because you have to remember, the majority of people are sleeping. They don't even know this is going on. They have no clue that this was even in the news. The only time they'll even know about it if something happens, and that's why I can't believe they're just going to let this event go and say, "Oh, no big deal, nothing happened. Maybe next time." I think it's a trial run to get the people woken up. Now, they named a couple of banks, Bank of America, Citibank. So we still might see something. I just cannot believe that this is over and they're just going to let this die. They're going to totally use this somehow, some way. And I'm going to continually monitor this through Friday, and we'll see if anything happens or doesn't happen. But as of right now, everything seems to be, you know, business as usual. I've had no problems today doing anything on the net or the banking or anything like that. So, you know, we're just going to keep looking at this. And if anyone else has a problem or notices something, go to the people. It's under terrorist false flags, and I have it linked on the Sentinel alerts right on top. You can just click on the link and just go there and just tell us what's happening in your area. I continually take snapshots from the site that's monitoring these cyber attacks, and I just put up static pictures just so we have some type of history of what's happening. And you can go there and take a look. Everyone, be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thank you very much.